Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of Things I Wish I Understood Better During My CS Degree.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Target!
This is explained with classic memes and vines. As always, I'm your host, the kid who grew up in the early 2000s and thought his knowledge of memes and vines would never help his professional career, but here we are, here to help you figure out your CS degree, survive some of the tough spots, and make it through. Our topic today is Git version control, how to develop asynchronously and wisely. If you're anything like me, this came up one day in class and I really can't remember ever being taught about it. So I kind of had to learn it on the fly. And then when I got into the career field, it was a little bit harder to really understand it. That's why I'm here to help you with it today. To start, here's a brief example of a fake company called totally real company actually called Epic Bames, and they've got three distinct developers, Chad, and Chad. Chads can't work on a file at the same time. This represents their access to a file called game1.py, and due to the fact that they can't be changing it at once, Chad has to have version 1 where he makes all of his edits, and then once he's done, then he can pass it off to Chad, who then is going to come here, he's going to make all his edits, and then can pass it off to Chad, who will make all of his edits. You can see there's a lot of time in between here where these Chads needed the file but couldn't access it. This is where Linus Torvalds comes in. You'll want to remember that name. Linus is kind of a legend in the community because Linus invented Linux, which every server in the world probably at this point runs on. Linus also invented Git, which is the main thing we're talking about today. Also, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure Linus invented being Finnish. Linus at one point said, what if we didn't version the entire file and make, version 1, version 2, version 3 when each developer's done with it, but what if we just versioned the committed changes? This changes the model a lot. All of a sudden, Chad, and Chad can all be working on the file at the same time because we're going to look at the things that they changed, and if they overlap, then we can handle that. But if they don't overlap, if they're working on different parts of the file, then we can happily continue onward and not stop their progress. What Git does is for each file, it tracks lines added. Wow, sorry, I lost my highlighter. Lines removed and lines changed. If you do this correctly, I'll go ahead and show you a little example here. If each commit is a hot pocket, forgot I did that. If each commit's a hot pocket, then we can get a comprehensive history by looking at all the changes from all the hot pockets. If we start with hot pocket number 1 and say these are the added lines in this file, that gives us a baseline. Then the next commit we can say, all right, 246 lines were added, 100 were removed, and that can change what starts here. Thereby, if you just keep adding up all the changes all the way to the top, you will have the most recent file right up here at the top. Now, one of the advantages of this is if for any reason you were to be like this guy.
I'm ducking and everything, died in the house. I got scared. I dropped my hot pocket.
If you drop your hot pocket and you lose one of your commits that should have been okay, but instead this broke prod. Yep, you idiot, you broke prod. That stinks. So what we can do then is just revert to using the last commit that worked. Instead, we'll break off of this one.
I'm ducking and everything.
Sorry. So yeah, now this is the main branch that we run off of. It's easy to drop that commit and go back to the last thing that works so you can get back to prod working quickly. Now the next main beautiful thing about Git is branching. If I were to consider all of the commits so far, all of my hot pockets, I'm going to call this the main branch. This is where, if I was a startup owner, I put all of my stuff so far, and we're going to have one branch that we run off of and keep as our main branch. Then, if I wanted to add something cool, I can create a new branch. I'm going to call this add cool feature, and I can put more hot pockets into that branch. These are going to be little code blocks that I've changed. Now, the real important part is that when you branch off of main, what it's essentially doing is giving you a copy of the main branch as it is right now with all of the hot pockets that were already there. And then you can add more hot pockets to make this cool branch. But you don't have to do it directly to main in case these don't work quite yet, or if you just want to keep things organized, which is what you'll do in most of your professional career. When we go on further, once we're done with our add cool feature branch, we want to be able to merge it back into main. For just quick, I didn't put this in the slides, but I'm realizing this might be helpful. When you want to merge something back in, it creates a new merge commit that is on the main branch. But that being said, in most professional development environments you'll be in, this creates what's called a PR. I can't believe I did that backwards. It stands for pull request. Yep, I'm going to just keep writing that and you're just going to sit there and watch me. That's fun. Pull request. Wow, fun. What that is that you are asking for permission to pull your branch into main. Once that is approved, then it can be merged into main, and you get this line here and this commit, a merge commit. That's how you get your feature branch into main. What that will do then essentially is it creates that same history of commits in main as well. We can always see that this is how it goes, that there's all the history of all the commits goes into this one. Now, the next one other part I want to talk about is merge conflicts. This is really, really common, and it happens when you check out a cool branch. So if I'm going to make a line real quick here. At the moment that I checked out main in order to create my cool feature branch, I only get this history and below. That's all that's here, right? Now, while I'm working on this, some other developer has made another branch and he's merged in these other hot pockets. These come from something else. So now this history, or this branch right here, my cool new branch, does not have these two new ones in its history. That means that oftentimes when you try to merge those, Git might struggle. And let's go through that just a little bit more in depth. Yeah, you really don't want that to happen. If the files that were changed don't touch the same lines, so if the hot pockets that happened in main while I was working on my branch don't conflict, it's free real estate. I can go ahead and merge that, and Git's not going to be scary at me because there's no merge conflicts. It knows exactly what to do with both commits. Again, this is about changed lines, and so it doesn't have to do it if the file is just changed in general. However, if the same lines are changed, Git doesn't know which commit to use, and then Git struggles. So what it will do instead is it will throw a big warning at you and say, can't merge it at this time. I need you to tell me which one we're going to keep. Usually the lines are so close and maybe it's the same change and you just have to tell Git which one to use. But say somebody was changing one constant variable in your software to be the letter A and one was changing it to be the letter B. Git doesn't know which one is actually true or more important, and it won't decide for you. So it tells you as the developer to figure it out. And that's how you get past merge conflicts. If you are using an integrated development environment, an IDE like VS Code, VS Code has a merge conflict resolution system inside of it, where it'll show you both side by side. It will say which one do you want to keep, or do you want to keep a combination of both. If you're a Python developer, it's usually just the ordering of imports from one person's branch to another. But it can be big and it can be serious, but it's not hard. It's just scary when you don't know exactly what you're doing. But then, once it's all set, you're good to go. This is a brief rundown on the commands that you might use in Git. Some IDEs like VS Code has buttons that can be done or that show inside of it that give you the ability to do whatever you need to do. But honestly, even today, I still use commands. So this one would check out the main branch. This would branch off of main to be whatever new branch you make. This adds all changed files into a staged status where they're not committed yet, but they're ready to be. And then, in order to push those to your branch to make a new hot pocket, you're going to commit them. And so you do git commit -m, and then you put in the message. That would be like, I added this field, I changed this. Then, at any point, you can go back through the history, and with the messages too, you can see what was changed and why it was changed by each developer. Git pull origin is how we handle remote file sharing. I'm going to go over this in just a little bit more in just a second. But that's going to pull the most recent version of the branch from wherever you store them. And then finally, git merge, you could merge master into your current branch to get all the updated old history. You could merge your current branch into master when you're done with it and ready for it to be in there. Sorry, master or main are kind of synonymous. I think master is no longer politically correct, and so it's supposed to be main. I know a lot of companies have not moved off of the master, though, just because that's how it's been for a long time, and it's hard to migrate some infrastructure like that. So same thing, though. And then finally, these two are among many online providers that do Git remote management. Git in itself, by default, is only on your computer. However, GitHub and Bitbucket take Git and they host it remotely. So I, as a developer, can be working on one computer and I can push my stuff to a remote main branch that my whole company uses, and they can push stuff to it. That means that sometimes your branch might not be up to date, which is why you have to do the git pull origin, and that pulls the most recent data from that branch, from the origin, into your new branch here. So GitHub is probably the most common, but this holds your Git repository remotely somewhere. So with Git in place, Chad, and Chad can therefore be working simultaneously on the same files without stepping on each other's toes, and know that their changes either don't conflict or they can handle it manually to make sure everything is correct. This gives them complete and total flexibility to code for epic BAMEs and do exactly what they need to do. This is Git. It is what you're going to use all the time. The commands are a little complicated, and sometimes commit histories get really messed up. That's what you have a senior developer for, because they, bless their hearts, they're hired to be professional babysitters for us juniors for a little bit of it. And then you also have online sources. The thing that I find all the time that's very helpful, honestly, is ChatGPT, because you can tell it exactly where you fricked up, and it will help you get to the right place. It is a great thing. And that is how you use Git, my friends. Until next time, good luck out there.